Welcome back to this series of tutorials on how to style a basic website. In this tutorial we're going to include a menu down below so that our visitor has a choice of pages to navigate on. So in order to do that, we're going to implement a couple of containers within our HTML page. One will be called a divider ID with the ID of content. And since we are going to use our content div to adjust the height so that our footer that's going to contain our menu, we're going to go ahead and place our title within the content container. So at this point we have an outer div that contains another container within it, and within that container we have our H2 title, H2 tags that is designing or controlling the title to our page. We want our menu to be below our content container, so we'll want to go just below the closing tag of our container and create our next container, which is our footer container, and we're calling it our container for this tutorial because we want to implement our menu within our footer. And so this container has got an opening div tag and a closing div tag with the ID of footer. We're going to open that div up and we're going to use something called an unordered list. So in order to implement an unordered list, it's going to have an opening tag with UL that represents an ordered list, and it also has a closing tag. So in order to get our list items, like in our example, we're going to want to put that, in order to get these buttons to display, we're going to use the list item container for our text so that they will display as buttons. So within our unordered list, we're going to open that unordered list container, and we're going to implement the opening and the closing list item tags. And since we have 3 buttons, we'll need 3 list items. So we'll just copy and paste. Now inside of the list item containers, we're going to type the text of our buttons. And this is what will show up to for the visitor to click on. In our example, these are the titles of the buttons. And we'll go ahead and save that. Now, in order for us to style these containers and their individual list items within the footer, we're going to need to implement them in the style sheet. So just below our wrapper div identifier, we're going to include our identifier for content with opening, closing brackets. And to make this a little bit faster, we're just going to copy and paste our properties from our wrapper. And let's go ahead and give our content container 100% width, and we're going to give it a height of about 450 pixels. Now what this is basically going to do is, since our content container is inside of our wrapper, we have our wrapper set at 95%. So our content container, even though we have it set at 100%, it won't extend past the width of our wrapper. And that's why we call them containers, because our wrapper container is going to control our content container. And then we're going to implement our footer the same way. And our footer is also located inside of our wrapper container, but outside of the content container. And we'll go ahead and bring this bracket down here. We're going to give our footer a width of 100%, even though it won't extend past the width of our wrapper at 100%, and we only want it to have a height of about 50 pixels. Now inside of our footer container is going to contain our unordered list, but in order to be able to style or manipulate the unordered list and the list items and the text within the list items, we're going to have to identify that unordered list by the div name that it is within. So we're going to include the identifier footer and then the UL for the unordered list within the footer. And we'll go ahead and we'll open that and we'll paste the same properties, so we'll have the same control over the unordered list. And we also want to implement some control over each list item, so we can just copy and paste. And we'll place a space and then our list item. We only have to do this once for each of the list items. Now with our list items, we don't want them to extend each one 100% across the inside of the unordered list. So we're going to give it, each list item, about a width of 150 pixels, height of our list item to 50 pixels as well, and the height of our unordered list at 50 pixels. We're going to go ahead and give our background of our unordered list a color of light gray, and that would be a 6-digit C. And we'll change the color of our list item to a little bit darker gray, and we'll use the A hexadecimal color code system and save that. Okay, we can see now that our footer has our unordered list with the light gray background, and each of our list items are within the unordered list. It's a little bit taller than what we want it to display. Let's go ahead and we will float our list items so that instead of stacking vertically, they will actually tile horizontally. In order to do that, we'll just simply go into our style sheet, and here within the list item, we'll place our code of our property value of float left. So what that's going to do is it's going to enable each one of these list items to actually stack up and fill this empty space here. So we have our float left. We'll go back to our browser and refresh it, and now that gives our list item a little more of a horizontal display. We still need to bring it down our menu a little bit more below. So we're going to give our content container a little bit more height of about 500 pixels. And basically, when we change the height of our content container, since it's just above the footer, it's going to push that footer down. We'll save that and refresh. And now it's starting to look more like our example. We want to change the size of our fonts, so we can go into our list item again. The list item is the container that has our text. So this is where we'll want to change the font size of our button display. And in order to do that, we'll just implement the font size property. We'll make it about 24 points. And then we'll save that, refresh. And that gives our font a little bit larger size like we did in our title. We can set the color of our text at a little bit lighter gray. And to do that, we will just implement within the list item that's controlling our text the property of color, and we can set that at a darker gray color, which is a 6-digit 4. We'll save that. And that just kind of gives it a little bit lighter color. We can also shift our list items to the right a little bit by implementing a little bit of a left margin for each one of these list items. And so we'll go into our list item, margin area, put our values, and in the left margin value area, we'll put about 20 pixel distance there. And now we have. So let's center our text within our list item containers. To do that, we'll implement the text align property and set it at center. We'll save it and refresh it. So there you go. You can see how easy it is to set up a basic website using a style sheet with some properties within each one of the areas that you have your elements. That's going to conclude this tutorial. In our next tutorial, we'll create some additional pages. We'll put some link effects on our buttons so that when we click, we can change to a different page. I hope this tutorial has been helpful, and thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial.